I trusted her with my dreams. I shared every detail, every plan, believing she was my closest ally. But when I finally saw my life's work being launched under her name, I realized she wasn't my friend anymore. She was the thief who stole everything I had worked for, and now she was about to learn what happens when you mess with the wrong person. I stared at my phone, my thumb hovering over the screen, unwilling to believe what I was reading. It was 6:42 a.m., a Saturday, and I was supposed to be getting ready for a quiet day, maybe catching up on work or enjoying a slow cup of coffee before diving into the grind of the week. But then I saw it, a social media post from Mia. It was a photo of a sleek new product, a line of eco-friendly clothing, and a caption that read, "So proud to finally share my latest project with the world. After months of hard work, it's finally here." It was my idea, every detail of it, from the sustainable fabric sourcing to the design of the pieces, right down to the partnerships I had lined up with local manufacturers. I'd spent the last 6 months researching, planning, and sketching out what could have been my breakout project, something I had been working on in the background while juggling my full-time job. It was a passion project, a dream that I'd held on to for years, but I never got the chance to act on it, not with Mia in my corner. Or at least, I thought she was. I blinked and rubbed my eyes as if to shake the fog of disbelief. My heart pounded, and the sickening feeling of betrayal crept in, knotting my stomach. Could she have really done this? Could she have stolen my idea, presented it as her own, and had the audacity to call it her hard work? I tapped on her profile and scrolled through more posts. Each one was worse than the last. Pictures of the prototypes I had spent countless hours designing, tweets about the partnerships that were supposed to be mine. The worst part? The overwhelming praise from her followers, congratulating her for her innovation and incredible vision. I couldn't escape the sinking realization. Mia, my best friend, had taken everything I had worked for and was reaping the rewards of my labor. She wasn't just stealing my ideas, she was thriving off them. I leaned back against the couch, staring at the screen in front of me, my hands trembling. The room felt suffocating, the walls closing in as I struggled to make sense of the situation. Mia had always been the type of person who could talk a big game. She was ambitious, sure, but I never thought she'd go this far. She was my confidant, the one person who knew about my struggles, my ambitions, my late-night brainstorming sessions. I'd shared everything with her, and now she was taking it all, like a thief in the night, leaving me with nothing but a sense of profound betrayal. A part of me wanted to reach out, to message her and demand an explanation, but I didn't. I couldn't. I knew what would happen next. She'd deny it, of course. Maybe claim that the idea was her own, that we had always talked about it together, and I had just forgotten the details. She'd play the victim, make me question myself. It was exactly what she would do, but I wasn't going to let her get away with it. Not this time. My mind raced with possibilities. How could I expose her? How could I prove that I was the one who came up with this idea? I thought about legal options, about contacting the brands she was working with, but something told me that would only end badly for me. It wasn't about money or recognition. It was about the principle, the fact that she had stolen something that was mine, something I had poured my heart and soul into. I set my phone down and exhaled slowly, forcing myself to calm down. If Mia thought she could get away with this, she was gravely mistaken. She might have taken my idea, but she didn't know who she was dealing with. The truth was, I had more than just ideas. I had the work to back it up. I had the history, the original designs, the sketches, the emails between manufacturers, the product development notes, the failed prototypes. I had the story. And Mia? She was about to find out what happens when you steal from the wrong person. I stood up and walked to my desk, my mind already beginning to hatch a plan. Mia had built her empire on my work, but I was about to take back what was mine. I wasn't going to let her walk away with everything I had worked for. But first, I needed to confront the most painful truth of all. Mia was no longer just a best friend. She was the enemy now, and that was a realization I was still trying to wrap my mind around. It was a few days before I could bring myself to speak to Mia. Every time I thought about reaching out, the words felt hollow, like they were too small to capture the magnitude of what she had done. My mind raced with questions. Why did she do it? Was I so invisible in her eyes that she thought she could just take what I created and claim it as her own? I kept replaying every conversation we'd had in the past 6 months. Had there been a moment when I'd inadvertently shared too much? I had to admit, I trusted her. In the early stages, when the idea was just a vague dream in my head, I would talk to Mia about it, about how the world needed a new approach to sustainable fashion, how consumers were becoming more conscious of where their clothes came from, and how I wanted to build a brand that aligned with my values. I even showed her the first draft of the designs. I told her about the manufacturers I'd reached out to, the vision for the brand. Mia had always encouraged me, always told me that I had something special, that I should go for it when the time was right. But now, she was the one who had gone for it, taking the spotlight I'd been preparing to step into. I felt foolish, almost embarrassed, for trusting her with something so personal. I finally decided to reach out, not over text, not through a call, but face to face. I needed to see her reaction, to gauge whether any part of her might feel the guilt that was eating at me. I set up a meeting at a coffee shop we used to frequent, a place that held so many memories of our friendship. My palms were sweating as I walked in. She was already seated at a table, casually sipping on her drink, scrolling through her phone like everything was normal. There she was, the person who had taken everything from me, sitting there without a care in the world. I stood there for a moment, taking her in, before I finally approached the table and sat down. Her eyes flicked up to meet mine, and for a brief moment there was a flash of recognition, then nothing, a cool indifference. "Hey," she said, offering a smile that didn't quite reach her eyes. "How have you been?" I clenched my fists under the table, trying to keep my voice steady. "Mia, we need to talk." Her expression faltered for just a second, but she quickly regained her composure. "About what?" she asked, sounding almost bored. I took a deep breath. This was it. "About my idea. The clothing line, the one you launched last week." Her eyebrows shot up, and for the first time, I saw a flicker of guilt in her eyes. So quick I almost thought I imagined it, but then she masked it like she always did. "What about it?" she asked, trying to sound casual. I could feel the weight of every word, the frustration and anger building up inside me, but I held it back. "It's my idea, Mia. Every part of it. From the concept to the designs. I trusted you with it, and now you're acting like it was yours all along." Her smile faded, replaced by a defensive look. "Oh, come on. This again? I told you I was working on it. You were always too busy to do anything with it, so I just took the initiative." I felt my blood boil. "You didn't take the initiative. You took my work, Mia. You didn't even have the decency to give me credit. You went ahead and launched it without a word to me." She crossed her arms, clearly uncomfortable now, but she wasn't backing down. "Look, you didn't exactly make it a priority. I thought I was doing you a favor by getting things off the ground. You always said it was just a dream, a someday thing. I'm just ahead of you, that's all." The words stung, but it was the lack of remorse in her tone that hurt the most. She was trying to justify it, make it seem like I had somehow brought this on myself for not acting quickly enough. It wasn't just the theft of my idea that felt wrong. It was the way she trivialized my hard work, my passion, and the years I'd spent building this vision in my mind. "No, Mia," I said, my voice low but firm. "You didn't do me any favors. You took advantage of my trust. I thought we were friends. I thought you cared about my dreams. But it turns out you were only interested in your own success. And now you're profiting off my labor like it was always yours." Her face hardened, and for the first time she didn't have a quick retort. Instead, she just sat back in her chair, arms still crossed, looking at me like she was waiting for me to say something else. I leaned forward, making sure she understood how serious I was. "I've spent months working on this, Mia. Months. And I'm not going to sit here and let you pretend like you came up with it. If you want to keep taking credit for my ideas, that's on you, but I'm not going to stay silent." There was a long pause. I could see her brain working, trying to figure out what to say next, but the words didn't come. Finally, she exhaled, almost impatiently, and stood up. "I don't have time for this," she muttered, grabbing her bag. "You'll get over it. Trust me." I sat there stunned. That was it? No apology, no acknowledgement of the harm she'd done, just a dismissal. I watched as Mia left, my chest tightening with the realization that she wasn't going to change. The person I thought I knew, the friend I had trusted, was gone. What was left was just someone who saw my dreams as her stepping stone, and that more than anything was the hardest part to swallow. The following days were a blur of frustration and disappointment. Mia's actions had shaken me, but it also lit a fire inside of me. I couldn't let her get away with this, not just for the sake of my pride, but because my vision for the project was worth far more than her superficial attempt to profit from it. I started planning, piecing together everything I could to prove that the idea was mine and that I had been the one to build it from the ground up. I didn't want to play the victim. I wanted to take control of the narrative and build something even better, something that would be mine and mine alone. I began compiling every email, sketch, and note I had ever made about the project. The first drafts of my business plan, the initial designs, even the messages with manufacturers. It was all there, documented, a roadmap of my vision. It wasn't just about proving I was the original creator. It was about creating something that Mia could never replicate. This wasn't just about revenge. It was about reclaiming my future. I called a few manufacturers and suppliers I had originally planned to work with. I asked for advice on starting my own line, leveraging the connections I'd built over the years. I knew that getting their support would lend credibility to my new venture. My mind raced with possibilities. I could approach this differently than Mia had, with more thought and depth, more care. I wasn't just throwing together an idea. I was going to build something meaningful, something sustainable, and it was going to shine in a way Mia's rushed copycat effort never could. Just when I thought I was gaining momentum, I ran into my first major obstacle. A few days after I started reaching out to suppliers and putting my new plans into motion, I got an email from Mia. She wanted to meet. The message was short and to the point, but there was no mistaking her tone. It wasn't an apology, and it certainly wasn't a confession. I knew she was either going to offer some flimsy excuse or try to smooth things over, but I didn't care anymore. I wasn't looking for closure from her. I just needed to keep moving forward. I agreed to meet her at a cafe, and when I walked in, I was surprised to find that she seemed nervous. Mia was always the confident one, the one who was always in control of the conversation, but this time she seemed uneasy. It was like she knew something had changed between us, something that could never go back to what it once was. "Mia, what is it?" I asked, trying to keep my voice neutral, though I could feel the frustration rising again. She hesitated before speaking. "Look, I didn't mean to hurt you. I thought we were just, working on the same thing. You said you wanted to do something big, but you never made a move, and I didn't want to let this opportunity slip by." I laughed bitterly, shaking my head. "You didn't take the opportunity. You took my work, Mia. My idea, my designs. You've had your chance to make it right, but I'm done talking about it." She looked at me with wide eyes, clearly not expecting such a blunt response. "I'm sorry. I didn't think it would go this far." I leaned in, my voice steady but fierce. "You don't get to apologize for something like this. You don't get to steal from me and think a few words will fix it. You've already made your bed, Mia." And with that, I turned and walked away, the sting of her betrayal still burning. But I wasn't broken. I wasn't defeated. In fact, it only gave me more clarity. Mia wasn't going to stop me. The road ahead was clear, and I was going to build something bigger than she ever could. I threw myself into the project with a determination I hadn't felt in years. With every day that passed, I got closer to launching my own line, one that would stand on its own merits and showcase everything Mia had stolen from me. But this time, it wasn't just about proving a point. It was about creating something real, something that reflected my values and vision. I began reaching out to influencers who believed in the same sustainable future I did, slowly building a network of people who shared my passion. Then came the breakthrough. It wasn't a moment of sudden success or a big deal falling into my lap. It was gradual, the product of every email, every conversation, every decision I had made along the way. One of the manufacturers I'd contacted earlier had a connection with a major online retailer, and they were looking for up-and-coming brands that prioritized sustainability. I sent them my concept, along with the product samples I had carefully curated. Within days, they were interested in working with me, and just like that, I had an opportunity to launch at a larger scale than I had ever imagined. This wasn't just luck, it was the result of the years I had spent learning the ropes, making connections, and doing the hard work that Mia had never bothered to do. As the contracts were signed, I realized that the real victory wasn't in the products I was about to launch. It was in the fact that I had built something from scratch, and it was finally mine. With every step, I felt a sense of peace I hadn't known before. Mia's success, based on nothing but stolen ideas, seemed hollow in comparison. I didn't need her to acknowledge my work. I was proving it to myself, and soon the world would see it too. It had been a few weeks since I signed the deal with the online retailer, and things were finally starting to take shape. My collection was set to launch in a month, and the excitement was beginning to build. But no matter how much I tried to focus on my success, there was always a nagging feeling in the back of my mind. Mia. She had been quiet after our last confrontation, but I knew it wasn't over. The silence was heavy, and every time I saw one of her posts about her line or the praise she was receiving, it only fueled the fire inside me. I had been so caught up in my own journey that I hadn't expected to feel anything for Mia, but part of me still wanted her to know that I was doing just fine without her. Maybe it was about validation, or maybe it was the need for closure. Either way, I had to know where we stood. One morning, as I was checking my emails, I saw it. Another message from Mia. It was short, direct, and surprisingly humble. "I know I've hurt you, and I've been thinking a lot about everything. I want to meet and explain. Please." For a moment, I hesitated. Part of me wanted to ignore it, to keep moving forward and leave the past behind. But I realized that maybe this was the last step I needed to take. Maybe this was the moment when Mia would finally see the weight of what she had done. Maybe this was the moment when I could finally close the door on the friendship that had once meant everything to me. I agreed to meet her at a small park nearby, a place that used to be a spot for our heart-to-heart talks when we were younger. As I approached, I saw Mia sitting on a bench, looking smaller somehow, as if the weight of the situation had finally caught up with her. "Hey," she said softly as I walked over. There was no bravado in her voice, no defensiveness. For the first time in weeks, I saw her without the armor she usually wore. "Hi," I replied, sitting beside her. There was a long silence between us, and I could feel the tension hanging in the air. Finally, Mia spoke. "I'm sorry, Lena. I'm really sorry for what I did. I thought I could just run with it, and I didn't think it would hurt you this way." I didn't respond immediately. Part of me wanted to yell, to call her out on everything she had taken from me, but instead, I looked at her carefully, trying to gauge the sincerity in her eyes. Was this real? Or was she just trying to salvage what was left of our friendship? "I trusted you, Mia," I said, my voice quiet but steady. "You were supposed to be my friend, and what you did, it wasn't just about stealing an idea. It was about betraying someone who would have had your back no matter what. I don't know if you understand how much that hurts." Mia nodded slowly, her eyes welling up. "I know. I've been trying to figure out how to fix this. I've been watching you, seeing how well you're doing, and it hit me. You didn't just lose the idea. I did. You built something real, and now it's too late for me to take it back. I've tried to fill the space with success, but it's not the same. I can't take credit for what I didn't do." I looked at her, the familiar pang of hurt still there, but also something else. Relief. The burden of carrying that anger was starting to lift. This moment wasn't about reconciliation, but it was about understanding that Mia had finally seen the impact of her actions. She wasn't asking for forgiveness. She was just acknowledging the damage she had caused. And that was all I needed. "I'm not doing this for you, Mia," I said. "I'm doing this for me, for my own future. You might have stolen my idea, but you can't steal what's coming next. I've learned from this, and I'm not going to let you, or anyone, define what I can do." There was a quiet pause as Mia absorbed my words. She didn't try to explain herself further, didn't make any more excuses. She simply nodded, and for the first time, I could see the weight of regret on her face. "I get it," she said quietly. "I don't expect you to forgive me. I just wanted you to know that I've learned something from all of this." "I hope you have," I said, standing up. "But I can't keep carrying this around. I'm moving on." As I walked away, I didn't feel the anger or the sadness I once did. Instead, I felt free. It was as if I had let go of something that had been holding me back, something that was preventing me from moving forward. Mia might have stolen my idea, but she had never stolen my drive, my vision, or my future. And that future? It was brighter than I had ever imagined. As weeks passed, my new collection gained momentum. The website went live, and soon, the first orders started pouring in. It wasn't just about the money or the recognition. It was about proving to myself that I could build something out of nothing, something entirely my own. The designs that had once been mine alone, but then stolen, now had a life of their own, and people were beginning to take notice. But the success felt different this time. Every accomplishment carried with it the weight of the lessons I had learned, the resilience I had built in the face of betrayal. I no longer cared about Mia's version of events, nor did I feel any anger toward her. My focus had shifted entirely onto the work, onto my dream, and I could feel the satisfaction of knowing I had done it the right way, by my own hands, without relying on anyone else to validate me. It wasn't long before the press picked up on the story. Articles began circulating. Blogs were written about the rise of a new sustainable fashion line, and interviews were requested. It felt surreal, yet incredibly grounding. I had taken what was once a passion and turned it into a brand that now had its own identity, its own place in the world. The validation was no longer needed from anyone else. I had built something real, something enduring. The unexpected part of this journey came in the form of a message from a contact I had made years ago, an influencer and advocate for sustainable fashion. She wanted to feature my brand in her upcoming campaign, something I hadn't anticipated. This was a huge step forward, a partnership that would launch my brand to new heights. But the surprise came when I also got a call from Mia. She didn't text this time. She called, and this time her voice was different. She didn't sound defensive or indifferent. There was no arrogance, only exhaustion and something I hadn't heard before, genuine remorse. "Lena," she started, "I wanted to reach out again. I don't expect you to forgive me, and I don't deserve to ask for that. But I need you to know that I've learned. I messed up. I've lost things in the process of chasing success, and I've realized that the one thing I can't get back is my integrity. I'm sorry for what I did, for stealing your work. I thought I could get away with it, and I was wrong." For a moment, I didn't know how to respond. Part of me felt that old bitterness rise. How could I ever trust her again? But the other part of me, the part that had already healed and moved forward, simply felt pity. "I don't know what you expect from me, Mia," I said calmly, my voice steady. "What you did can't be undone. I'm not angry anymore, but I also can't pretend that what happened didn't hurt me. I built something from that pain, something that's mine now, and I'm proud of it." There was a pause on the other end, as if Mia was taking in the weight of my words. "I understand," she replied softly. "I really do. I just wanted you to know that I see it now, and I'm sorry." I took a deep breath, and for the first time, I didn't feel the need to hold on to the past. "Thank you for saying that, but I've moved on. I don't need your apology. I'm doing just fine, and I'm going to keep moving forward." And with that, I hung up. It wasn't about cutting ties or holding grudges. It was about understanding that the past could no longer define me. It was time to move forward, to live the life I had always imagined without looking back. The next few months were a whirlwind. As my brand continued to grow, I got more offers for collaborations and even some invitations to speak at sustainability events. The life I had always wanted was finally within reach, and it felt even more incredible than I had imagined. I wasn't just thriving in the world of fashion, I was making a difference. The impact I had hoped to create was starting to take shape, and it was more rewarding than any recognition. One day, while reviewing some product designs, I received an unexpected email. It was from Mia's company. She had launched her own line, a direct competitor to mine. At first, I felt a twinge of something, resentment maybe. But then I realized I wasn't even bothered. Her success or failure had nothing to do with me anymore. I wasn't in competition with her. I was competing with myself, striving to be better, to do better. As I prepared for my next big launch, I thought about how far I had come, about the lessons learned, and the strength I had gained. The betrayal had hurt, yes, but it had also propelled me to build something even more meaningful. In the end, it wasn't Mia's theft that defined me. It was my ability to rise above it. And as I stood there, looking at my latest collection, I realized that the real victory wasn't in proving Mia wrong. It was in proving to myself that no one, not even a so-called best friend, could take away what was mine to create. I wasn't just reclaiming my ideas. I was reclaiming my future.